Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. 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 Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Dr. Terrence Shipman with Mr. Shipman's Class Podcast. I am here with our edition of doing the state of education. Today we are doing science. And I have a room of special guests today. Let them go around the room and introduce themselves.
I'm Miss Mackey.
I'm Mr. Benjamin, 7th grade science teacher.
I'm Miss Veal, 6th grade science teacher.
I'm Miss Smith, 8th grade and high school science teacher.
I'm Miss Prudence Williams, high school and 8th grade science.
All right, today I'm so glad to have you all here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to do this the same way we've been doing the first two podcasts. What is the state of science?
Well, Dr. Shipman, the state of science today, I think that all states are moving towards the national curriculum, whether they want to or not.
I think that the state of science is in distress right now, and that's due to the fact that the lack of science being taught below level. Right now, reading and math are the forefront, so science takes a back seat. But because of where we're moving at with technology, science needs to be in the forefront. So I think that we're in dire straits right now with science.
I can agree. I think the curriculum is somewhat outdated with the new skills that the students need with technology and things like that. Science education needs to be, I think, more holistic. The disciplines are focused on physical life and earth science for the most part, even up through high school. But I think incorporating some other forms of computer science, technology, those things are directly related to the sciences. So I think that would help the subject advance.
Well, I think that the way we're at the beginning of trying to make the three disciplines we do in middle school actually kind of mesh so that students aren't learning new skills when they come to the next grade. And although we're at the beginning of that, I think it's a start. And so we, hopefully if we continue in this way and we do incorporate technology into science, we can hopefully move closer towards to the national standards.
I think what I would like to see is, as far as elementary, I truly would like to see them focus more on math and reading in elementary. Send them to middle school, understanding what a graph is, knowing how to use a metric ruler, just knowing some basic cross-cutting concepts that go across from math, knowing how to write a good, informative, nonfiction paragraph. If we could see that, I a lot of times we hear, oh, they should have picked up this topic or that topic in 4th grade, 5th grade. But what I find is they don't really learn it. They do more play science, for lack of a better term, in elementary school, and you end up reteaching. What we need is them to come with some strong mathematical skills, reasoning, and I'm not talking high school reasoning, but when I say infer, they should not look at me like, what language are you speaking?
Agreed.
I think science right now is in a weird position where it's transitioning from just hearing science or writing science to doing science. And I think it's a strange place because in elementary, they play all the time. They do play in science, and then they stop in 4th and 5th. And they could probably be beneficial if they continue that in 4th and 5th and then middle school and high school, so you can teach the whole child, not just definitions.
Right.
Agreed.
I'm going to tell you a man who last year had the privilege of teaching science, social studies, and ELA all in 1 year. The biggest problem I had with science was they couldn't read.
Yeah.
They couldn't read. I had to read the terminology, the vocabulary, and guide them through it. They get to a practice test, and they like, Dr. Shipman, I don't know what this is. And you're sitting there like, I cannot read the test for you. I think that is one of the hardest problems that science teachers have to overcome, is having the students learn how to read. All right, that was a great first round. Now for question number 2. Where do we need to go with teaching science?
Science is a verb. And even though I laugh at it and say it tongue-in-cheek, I do agree. Me and Miss Mackey were speaking. We started teaching a long time ago, and we both remember when hands-on was the way, and then all of a sudden it slid back towards conceptual reasoning, and now we're trying to slide back towards hands-on. I do think science needs to be a verb. I do think it needs to be something that you said do. Mm-hmm. And but when you do it, you got to be able to understand what you did and how it's relevant to your everyday life. And if we can't put all those pieces together, we still swing back and forth in it.
And I think part of it that we need to focus on skills that students need to be able to investigate, because pretty much all the standards require them to investigate something, plan the investigation, investigate, guiding question, and then come up with a constructed argument to explain what they found in this investigation. So with that, the skills that they kind of need them pretty much where they should be when they come to middle school, meaning in elementary, they have to practice the skill of conversion, the skill of using the ruler, the skill of being able to identify independent, dependent variable, all those things that come into play when you're doing an investigation. So we can't do the investigations because we're teaching those skills right now. And so it's taken away from the actual doing of science, because science is a verb and we want to do more of it.
I agree, and I think to piggyback off of what Ms. Williams said, I think the first thing is that we definitely need to make science something that's more active, more hands-on, but also, and this is a responsibility I felt like I wanted to take on this year, even though I'm not a language arts teacher, to avoid the high school teachers having the same issue that I'm having. I'm trying to help students learn how to do simple reading, decoding things, and understanding context clues, and understanding certain prefixes and suffixes that are common in scientific vocabulary, just things like that can try to, if something wasn't taught, if a skill or something with reading wasn't taught in elementary school, to at least try to supplement it as much as I can in 7th grade before the students continue to have the same issue in high school. So I think the two things, helping the students just learn how to read, honestly, being a quasi language arts teacher, and then also making sure that the kids are being active and engaged. Because it's frustrating to me when I hear a kid say they hate science. That's the subject you're supposed to enjoy. You're supposed to love science. That's the class that you're supposed to have fun in. So
I have to agree, to piggyback on pretty much everyone, that if we use science as a bridge, I think that it will help kids tackle not just one subject, all subjects, because science has math, science has the reading in it, science has the history, so it has all the compounds in there. So if we teach them through hands-on, let the kids know how to investigate, how to decode, then they're going to roll over to ELA. Oh, I remember I can break this sentence down, I can do this. They can go to history and know, okay, these are the key words that are here. I know this because in science we learned about things that happen in Alaska. It's all going to tie in. So I definitely believe that science can be the bridge for the other subjects.
I also think it's important for science, just nationwide, maybe even worldwide, the importance of science needs to be put back into the world. Like right now, climate change is a big deal, and I don't think people, and especially children, don't think it's a big deal. And the people that we're teaching now are the ones that could possibly come up with the solutions for the future. So if they don't even think it's important now, they're going to have a hard time in the future, or not be prepared for those types of things, or understand what's happening to the environment in the future.
Well, you guys are doing fantastic, I tell you. I even try to incorporate science within social studies. We were doing pollution earlier, and one of my favorite people was Bill Nye.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, I showed his videos.
Yes.
And one of the administrators walked in and said, well, why are you showing this? Because he's teaching about pollution, which is directly what we're learning, and the kids caught on to it fast. Plus, it comes with a worksheet, so I love that.
Cross-cutting.
Yeah, so that was a perfect activity to use in social studies that related to science. And another thing we did was it's one country in the Middle East that's actually going to build a mountain to create more rainfall because the country doesn't have enough water. So that, again, is science. You have to know about science to understand why is this country building this huge mountain to make it rain more so they can have more water. All right. As we go into our final question, you're doing a fantastic job, as I said. Here we go. How can they come better prepared from elementary, which we kind of already been answering that, but let's dig a little deeper. Even home. I want to know what can the parents do at home. Most parents who listen to this podcast want to know, hey, how can I help you out with science?
Well, as far as elementary, because I've taught elementary before, it can't be on the back burner anymore. And that's what I've seen primarily. Everything, the focus is math and reading when it's time for testing, because you have that accountability, and science gets pushed. And so it's pushed away in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then we start worrying when they get to fifth grade because we know that they're going over to middle school and they get just a teaspoon of science. So a lot of times when the kids come to us, it's a blank slate. And unfortunately, our standards that we're teaching piggybacks on standards that should have been taught in elementary school. So now we had a deficit. So now we have to backtrack, catch them up, and then proceed on and stay on schedule. So if we could get some type of, I guess, a meeting of the minds per se, where we kind of stay on track with elementary, that bridge from elementary to middle school, and then that bridge from middle to high school, I think kids would be more successful.
I think in my recommendations for a parent might be a little trivial, but I'm just thinking about my personal experiences in elementary school with science. Just something as simple as having your kid do the science fair in the elementary grades. I just remember carrying out that experiment, doing my research, all those things taught me the skills that I needed to do labs in middle school and just science in middle school and high school and even college labs. So I think that's one thing. And then another thing that might seem trivial, but I think keeps kids interested in science is a lot of times kids have why questions and you just kind of throw it off to like, I don't know, it's just how things happen. It's just how things work. I would say just simply looking it up on your phone and explaining it to a kid can pique that interest in science. Like if a kid wakes up in the morning and wonders why the sun looks purple and red and orange in the morning, but during the day it looks a different color, just a simple Google search can give you that answer. You can hand your kid the phone and then they can get interested in science like that. So I think those are things from the parents' perspective. We're not really school, but I think those things can help to keep the kids at least interested in science. And I think, of course, the biggest skills that they need are those reading skills in elementary school as well.
I have to say I agree with both of you. And I would say that as a parent, when my son was little, even now he's in college, he loves science. Everything was an experiment, even when it wasn't. You don't have to have a lot of science background to do an experiment. It was, Mommy, what would happen if we mixed the red Kool-Aid with the green Kool-Aid? Well, let's see. And encouraging him not just to mix it, but get out a sheet of paper, write down your plan, 2 or 3 lines from a third grader. It really makes them feel important. Hang it on the kitchen door. Like you said, use the cell phone, snap a picture of it, send it over to Walmart, print it. All of a sudden, you got a mini science fair in your house. When your kid goes to school, the first time they heard of research is not from the teacher. Yeah. We research everything in our house. Mm-hmm. Mama, BJ, don't walk outside in your barefoot in those socks. You're going to get them dirty. Well, I bet you're tired of cleaning it or whatever. Everything was an experiment, whatever it was. And I would encourage him to run the experiment. I bet you I can get the stains out with plain bar soap. And, of course, I knew he couldn't. Yeah. And I knew he would make a mess, but it was definitely keeping him engaged in learning. Mm-hmm. Science, and I know it's because I'm a science teacher, but science was at the forefront, and he went to school ready to ask questions. And I think that one of the hardest things in this new curriculum I'm struggling with is students will develop questions. Sometimes you look into your class, and it's a sea of silence. You say, what questions do y'all have? And it's like their mind has never been asked to ask a question. And I think if you send your kids to school, don't beat out the why, like you said. Mm-hmm. Encourage the why, but encourage them to figure out how to find their own answers. Even if the answer is not correct right then, learning something is better than shutting them down.
I think there's also little things and activities you can do at home. Start a little gardening outside, or just take a nature walk and go to the museum. Just let them explore a little bit, and so when they do come to school, it's not foreign. They're not confused by the terminology, because it's something they've at least been exposed to, and then we can do the rest. But if they come from nothing, if it's a blank slate, then we're working backwards to get them at least just a grade level. We need to get them above grade level.
Right. And when you encourage the why, know that it's good for the parents to ask questions of the child as well as the child asking the questions. But once that child shares with you something that they're passionate about, go ahead and continue that, and kind of just whatever you need to do to make it grow, so that when they do come to school, they bring that same passion to the learning, not just science, but also other subjects. And I think the other thing is, in elementary, they just need to do more science, and maybe we need to support the teachers more, because, if you had that science teacher who loved, the teacher in elementary who loved science, you did a lot of science. But if you had the one that didn't really feel comfortable with science, you probably didn't have so much science. You had more math. Mm-hmm. So just being a help to the teachers, so they can actually provide the doing of science that the students need before they do reach middle school would be very helpful, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say also that I think the piggyback on Ms. Veal, the key word is exposure. And I think kids need to realize, as well as parents, that guess what? Science is literally everywhere. Because there's so much with science. It's from medicine to space to why does the lawnmower work the way it does. So it's literally everywhere. It doesn't cost money from a parent's perspective to find out about science. We could walk to the park. Why is this grass over here green and this grass over here brown? What do you think is happening? It's literally everywhere. And I think if we keep that in mind and parents keep that in mind, the kids will come with that knowledge, that exposure, and that drive and that will. And then, and piggyback on what you're saying in reference to what's going on in elementary school, people do have a tendency to teach to their forte. However, with science having so many branches, if the teacher would just pick a branch, as long as that exposure is there. If it's no more than 30 minutes a day. Kids, we have recess, we're going outside. We're going to look for something that's a living specimen. Touch something that's living. Tree, grass, something. Is air living? No, I'm not sure. Let's find out if air is something living. And that exposure, that drive is going to make them come here and want to be inquisitive and want to do well.
Yes. I was also thinking that parents also have to understand that you hold a wealth of knowledge. I remember when my son was in 3rd grade, he begged me, "Mommy, you teach science. Come to my classroom. Come to my classroom." And I asked the teacher, "What do you want me to do?" And she said, "Well, we're studying invertebrates." I literally went and got earthworms. Mm-hmm. And literally all I did was put them on wet paper towels and let the kids touch them. And they learned. I was shocked at how much they learned, because what we fail to realize, particularly about kids, is how little they bring to the table. They are blank as far as a lot of things go. And if you've never put a worm in their hands, they've never touched a worm. And they don't know that, their skin is wet. And, and the teacher just ran with it. I just put them on a little paper towels, and they wrote, they colored. She had a whole lesson planner. As I taught, I think I did 20 minutes with them. And it was great. And so parents, don't be shy. If you have a special skill, you can build something. You keep a pet something. Show it to your kids. Your child will love it. The teacher will be like, "Great, I don't have to teach this science unit right now. Somebody else came in." So just try to do that. I think that would be really good. Power man.
All right, 2 things I'm going to say real quick. When I taught elementary, kindergarten, we always had a pet. Tommy was our guinea pig. Everybody loved Tommy. Tommy even saved my life. I had to tell y'all that story another day. But Tommy, everybody had Tommy for a couple of years. Tommy was a great guinea pig. The kids loved it. They learned about science. We also always had fish, which was another thing in my kindergarten class. And, of course, every spring we planted plants. You had to plant the seed, water it every day, watch them grow. That is basic elementary science. And, I had another one I wanted to... my sons. So I have a pond behind my house. So when we first moved into the house, it was full. It had grass all over it. And we heard frogs every night. So I go buy some grass carp. That's a fish that eat the grass. So a couple of months later, we don't hear any more frogs. They say, so Dad, what happened to the frogs? The fish ate the grass, which the frogs lived in, so you don't have any more frogs.
Ecosystem.
So I messed up all year. I messed up all. But I have a clear pond. All right. I want to thank my guests again. Does anybody have any closing words before we get out?
Science is a verb.
It really is, and it is fun, and then kids should love it.
Yeah.
Science is lit.
Science is lit.
And science is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Again, I forgot at the beginning to tell you, if you want to contact me, you can look on my website at www.terrenceshipman.com. I'm also on YouTube. Yep, have my own YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Google Plus, which will be in it in April. And I have nothing to do about that. They sent me a notice that it'll be in it in April. But I'm on Google Plus. Again, as I always say in closing, I am special, I am smart, I am somebody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on Mr. Shipman's class.
Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. Mr. Shipman's class.